The file hit the prosecutor's desk at 6:03 in the morning. By 6:47, 3 phones rang simultaneously inside Yeon Group's executive floor. By 7:15, the trading halt was announced. And by 9 a.m., Yeon Jae-won, the man who had never once in his 42 years on this earth lost anything he decided to keep, sat alone in a boardroom that no longer belonged to him, staring at a glass wall that used to reflect an empire. He knew exactly how it happened. He knew the moment he let it happen. He just never thought she would. Her name was Simone Everett. Jae-won had built his entire life on one principle: people were tools, and tools did not have loyalty. They had function. You picked the right tool for the right job, you used it cleanly, and you put it away before it could turn in your hand. He had done this with business partners, with lawyers, with politicians, with men twice his size who thought their money made them untouchable. He had never been wrong. Until Seoul, on a Tuesday evening in October, when a black American woman in a gray coat walked into his private office and sat down across from him like she had been there before. "You pulled my federal file," she said. No greeting, no tension in her voice. Just a statement, the way you'd say the weather. "I did," Jae-won said. "And you think it gives you something, doesn't it?" She looked at him for a long moment. "Tell me what you need." That was how it began. Not with threats, not with contracts, not with the elaborate leverage play he had spent 6 weeks constructing. She had simply looked at him, understood the entire architecture of his position, and offered him the one thing he had not prepared for. Willingness. Clean, unhurried, completely controlled willingness. And it unsettled him more than any refusal would have. What Jae-won needed was a war fought in the dark. His enemies were not men you could confront in daylight. Chairman Beck, his largest board rival, had been bleeding Yeon Group's proprietary data to a competitor for 18 months. Jae-won knew it. He could not prove it in a way that didn't also expose methods he couldn't afford to expose. He needed someone outside his world. Someone his enemies would never see coming. Simone Everett had spent 8 years as a federal financial crimes investigator before she left. She was brilliant in a way that was almost quiet, the kind of intelligence that didn't announce itself but revealed itself slowly, like a tide going out and showing you the floor of the ocean. She built cases the way other people built architecture. Precise, layered, load-bearing. She dismantled Chairman Beck in 11 days. Not violently, not loudly. She followed the data, found the ghost accounts, traced the transfers through 4 countries, and delivered a package so clean that Beck's own legal team advised him to resign before it went public. He did. On a Friday. By Monday, Jae-won had consolidated his board position. That was fast, Jae-won told her. "You gave me everything I needed," she said. "You have very good records." He gave her more access after that. More resources. More of the internal architecture of Yeon Group than he had shared with anyone outside his innermost circle. He told himself it was strategic. She needed the access to do the job. He was simply being efficient. What he didn't ask himself was why he had started looking for reasons to call her into meetings that could have been emails. They worked late on a Thursday night in December. The Seoul skyline stretched across the windows behind them, both of them bent over a financial map he had spread across the conference table. Their shoulders were close. He could smell something faint and warm, something that had no business being in a war room, and he pulled his attention back to the documents with the deliberate discipline of a man who prided himself on control. "You never talk about yourself," he said. It came out more honest than he intended. She didn't look up. "You didn't hire me to talk about myself. I'm not asking as your employer." She looked up then. Something moved behind her eyes, not softness, exactly. More like a door that was closed but not locked. She looked at him for 3 full seconds, then looked back at the map. "I came to Seoul for a reason," she said. "I'll tell you when the work is done." He let it go. He shouldn't have. The night she found the file was a Wednesday. She had been cross-referencing a subsidiary account that connected to Jae-won's second rival, and the search pulled an adjacent record, a transaction authorization from 3 years ago, buried inside a legacy holding company that no longer existed on paper. The name on the authorization was Yeon Jae-won. The transfer was a payment. The payment was made to a private security contractor. The contractor's name appeared in a separate file she had brought from America on an encrypted drive she had not opened in 6 weeks. Her brother's case file. Marcus Everett, 31 years old. Killed in a hit-and-run in Atlanta that the police closed as an accident inside of 2 weeks. Simone had never believed it. She had spent 2 years quietly pulling threads, following money, and the thread had led her to Seoul, to Yeon Group, to a name that kept appearing in the peripheral darkness of everything she uncovered. She had just never had proof. She had it now. She sat in the dark of her apartment for 4 hours and did not move. She thought about the way Jae-won had looked at her across the conference table. The way his voice changed when he stopped being strategic and started being honest. She thought about the door behind his eyes that she recognized because she had the same one. She thought about Marcus laughing on the phone with her 3 days before he died, telling her he was onto something, telling her to be safe. She thought about all of it. Then she closed the file, set it down beside her laptop, and went to sleep. Because she already knew what she was going to do. She had known since she got on the plane. She finished Jae-won's wars first. Every single one. 2 more rivals dismantled. A corrupt prosecutor quietly handed evidence of his own crimes by a source he could never identify. A hostile takeover attempt neutralized before it had a name. She did it all with the same precision, the same composure, and she did it using every access code, every contact, every resource that Jae-won had placed in her hands. And then she turned everything around. The case she built against Yeon Group took her 19 days. It was the finest work of her life. She used Jae-won's own records, his own sourcing, his own documentation architecture, the very systems he had complimented her on understanding so quickly. She traced the contractor payment back through 7 layers to the original order. She connected the holding company to the cover-up. She documented the cover-up as a deliberate act, not an inheritance. Jae-won had not simply been born into his father's sin. He had chosen to protect it. She packaged everything into 3 submissions. 1 to international financial crimes. 1 to the Korean prosecutors his own family had corrupted. 1 to a journalist she trusted. She sent all 3 on a Tuesday. At 6 o'clock in the morning. By 9 a.m., she was sitting in a coffee shop 3 blocks from her apartment when his call came through. She let it ring. He found her in person 2 hours later. She didn't ask how. She had given him enough access that she already knew he could. He sat down. Across from her. He looked like a man who had just watched the building he grew up in burn to the ground and was still standing close enough to feel the heat. His voice, when he finally spoke, was quieter than she had ever heard it. Was any of it real? He said. Any of it? Or was I always just a job? Simone looked at him across the table. Outside, Seoul moved past the windows, indifferent and alive. It was real, she said. And it didn't change anything. Because Marcus was real too. He closed his eyes. 1 breath. 2. I didn't give the order, he said. No, she said. You just buried it so deep that nobody could ever hold your father accountable. And then you lived on the money. And then you hired his sister. He opened his eyes and looked at her, and for the first time in 42 years, Yeon Jae-won had absolutely nothing left to say. She picked up her coffee, stood up, and walked out into the morning. He sat there alone, in a city that used to belong to him, and understood finally, completely, what it cost to use someone who had already decided what they came for. He had handed her everything. She had only ever needed him to open the door.